Sir, this is a private funeral.
That's Bramwell's pin.
Nobody outside the family has that pin. My name is Emory Kastel.
Rain hammers the tent over Ridgemont Cemetery. 600 people watch a casket lower into the ground. A man in a torn coat pushes through the crowd and stops at the edge of the grave. Security grabs his arm. "Sir, this is a private funeral." He doesn't move. He unbuttons the coat, one button at a time. Underneath, a suit jacket. Pressed, tailored, a gold pin on the collar, the same pin resting on the casket lid. A woman gasps and drops her umbrella. "That's Bramwell's pin. Nobody outside the family has that pin." The man looks up. "My name is Emory Kastel." The entire tent goes still. Nobody in the tent moves. Rain drums on the canopy. Emory stands at the edge of the grave, coat hanging open at his sides. A man in a charcoal suit steps forward, chin lifted. This is a closed service. Security, remove him. 2 guards grip Emory by the shoulders. He doesn't resist. He doesn't blink. Wait. The woman with the umbrella pushes past the guards. Her hands shake as she points at the gold pin on his collar. "Where did you get that?" "Silas gave it to me," Emory says. 31 years ago." A murmur rolls through the crowd like wind through wheat. The man in the charcoal suit laughs, short and sharp. Silas Bramwell never met a homeless man in his life. "Get him out of here." Emory reaches into his coat and pulls out a folded photograph, edges soft from handling. He holds it up. 2 young men stand on a loading dock, arms slung over each other's shoulders, grinning at the camera. The woman's umbrella hits the ground. "That's him," she whispers. "That's Silas, 22, 23 years old. Give me that." The man in the suit snatches for the photograph. Emory pulls it back before his fingers close on it. "You're Dorian," Emory says. "Silas's nephew. You used to hide behind that same loading dock so your uncle wouldn't catch you skipping shifts." Dorian's face goes rigid. "How do you know that?" "Because I was the one who covered for you." The crowd tightens around them now, phones lifting, umbrellas forgotten. A pastor steps toward the casket, hands raised. "Please, let's have some." "No." The woman cuts him off. Her voice cracks. "I want to hear this." She turns to Emory. "I'm Silas's daughter. Nobody has ever told me about a loading dock. Nobody has ever told me my father worked with his hands." Emory looks at her for a long moment. "Your father built this entire company standing next to me, before the towers. Before the name Bramwell meant anything." Dorian steps between them, voice rising. "This man is a liar. He's here to extort money from a grieving family." Emory reaches into his coat again. This time he pulls out an envelope, edges yellowed, sealed with wax that has cracked with age. "Your uncle mailed this to me 4 months ago," he says. "He told me not to open it until the day of his funeral." Dorian's hand shoots out. "Give me that envelope." "It has my name on it." Emory holds it just out of reach. "Not yours." The rain picks up. Guards hesitate, unsure who to grab now. The pastor stands frozen beside the casket. Silas's daughter steps forward, eyes fixed on the envelope. "Open it," she says. "Right here, right now." Emory breaks the wax seal. Emory unfolds the letter slowly. The paper trembles in his hands, not from the wind. "Read it out loud," Silas's daughter says. "Please." He clears his throat. "If you're reading this, I'm gone, and you're standing somewhere you were never supposed to be welcome. I'm sorry it took me this long." Dorian crosses his arms. This is theater. Anyone could write a letter. "Let him finish," the daughter snaps, and Dorian goes quiet. Emory continues. 31 years ago, a kid named Emory Kastel pulled me out of a burning delivery truck on Route 9. I was 17, he was 19. I never told anyone what happened that night, because the truth would have ended my father's business before it started. A woman near the front covers her mouth. "The truck belonged to my father. I was driving it without a license, racing another driver for a bet. Emory saw the crash from a bus stop. He broke the window with his bare hands and pulled me out 30 seconds before the tank caught fire." Emory's knuckles tighten around the letter. He doesn't look up. "My father paid Emory to disappear, not because he was ungrateful, because the accident would have exposed that I'd been driving drunk, underage, on a route that wasn't insured. Emory took the money because his mother was sick and he needed it. but my father made sure he never worked in this industry again. Every application Emory submitted for the next 3 decades quietly disappeared. I let it happen. I told myself it wasn't my responsibility. I built an empire on a night I never repaid. Dorian's arms dropped to his sides. Silas's daughter takes a step back, like the ground shifted under her. Emory keeps reading. 2 years ago, I found him living outside a shelter 4 blocks from our corporate headquarters. I recognized him instantly. I didn't say a word. I was too much of a coward to face what I'd done. Instead, I started quietly rebuilding what I took from him. He turns the page. Emory, the account number below is not charity. It is 31 years of wages, with interest, for the man who gave me every day I've had since that night. My daughter will confirm the transfer. I asked her to trust you completely, whatever that looks like when this is read. Wear the coat with the pin. It was always supposed to be yours. 10 quelled. The tent goes silent except for the rain. Dorian's voice comes out smaller now. That account number, that's not possible. That's... Say it, the daughter says. Dorian swallows. That's 40% of the company's shares. Gasps ripple through the crowd. Phones lower. Even the pastor stares. Emory folds the letter with careful hands, like it might tear if he's not gentle. I didn't come here for shares, he says quietly. I came here to say goodbye to my friend. Silas's daughter steps forward, and, for the first time, no one stops her. Silas's daughter stops an arm's length from Emory. Up close, her eyes look exactly like her father's, pale gray, steady even when everything else about her shakes. My name is Odette, she says. I need to hear the rest of that letter. Dorian steps forward, blocking her path. Odette, you don't actually believe this man. I believe the handwriting. She holds out her hand toward the letter. That's Dad's signature at the bottom. I've seen it on every birthday card since I was 6. Emory hands her the pages without a word. Odette scans the final paragraph, lips moving slightly as she reads. Her hand goes to her mouth. There's more, she says. He named an attorney. A meeting. Tomorrow morning. Dorian's jaw tightens. That's not happening. This is a funeral, not a courtroom. It's happening, Odette says, because my father asked for it. In writing. Signed. A guard clears his throat. Ma'am, should we still remove him? No. Odette folds the letter against her chest. He stays. The crowd shifts again, closer this time, no longer trying to look like they aren't watching. Dorian steps toward Emory, voice dropping low enough that only a few nearby hear it. Whatever you think you're owed, old man, you have no proof beyond a letter my uncle wrote in his final months. Grief makes people irrational. Courts see through that. Emory doesn't flinch. Your uncle wasn't irrational. He was thorough. Ask your lawyer about the second envelope. Dorian's face drains of color. What second envelope? The one addressed to the board, Emory says. Mailed the same week as mine. Odette's head snaps up. The board received something too? 4 months ago, Emory says. Sealed, like mine. Meant to be opened the day the company confirmed his passing. Dorian pulls out his phone, thumb trembling as he scrolls. He stops on an email, reads it twice, and looks up like the ground has opened beneath him. There's an emergency board notice, he says quietly. Scheduled for 9 a.m. tomorrow. I thought it was routine. It's not routine, Emory says. The pastor finally steps forward again, voice gentle but firm. Friends, we still have a burial to complete. Whatever business matters exist can wait until... They can't wait, Odette says. My father built this entire moment on purpose. He wanted us standing right here, together, before any of us had time to prepare a story. Rain slides off the edge of the tent in a steady curtain behind her. Dorian straightens his jacket, trying to recover some composure. Fine, we'll attend the board meeting. All of us. And we'll let the lawyers sort out what a homeless man's letter is actually worth. Emory meets his eyes without anger. It's worth exactly what your uncle said it's worth. You'll hear it tomorrow, same as me. Odette looks between the two men, then down at the letter still trembling slightly in her hands. 9 a.m., she says. Nobody misses it. The crowd doesn't disperse when the casket finally lowers. They linger at the edges of the tent, umbrellas forgotten, watching Emory the way people watch something they can't yet name. An older man in a rain-soaked coat steps forward first. His hands are rough, The kind of rough that comes from decades of factory work, not desk work. I worked the loading dock with Silas back in the day, he says. Before any of this, he gestures at the cemetery. The black cars, the wreaths. Before any of this existed, there was a story about a kid who disappeared after some accident. Nobody ever said his name. Silas never said his name. He looks at Emory. You're that kid. Emory nods once. The man's throat works like he's swallowing something heavy. 31 years, and he finally said it. Odette watches this exchange with her arms crossed tight over her chest, like she's holding herself together. A younger woman pushes closer, phone still recording despite a guard's half-hearted attempt to wave her off. This is going to be everywhere by tonight, she murmurs to the man beside her. A homeless man, a funeral, 40% of a company. People are going to lose their minds. Put the phone away, Dorian snaps. No, Odette says. Let them record it. My father wanted this scene. He didn't write a private letter and mail it privately. He built a moment. Dorian turns on her. You're actually defending this? I'm defending the truth, she says. Something you've apparently had access to for longer than I have. Dorian's mouth opens, then closes. You knew, Odette says, quieter now, almost to herself. Didn't you, about the accident, about Route 9? Dorian's silence answers for him. The older man from the loading dock steps back, shaking his head slowly. Some families bury the truth right along with the body, he mutters, just loud enough for the nearest rows to hear. A woman near the back, early 60s, dressed simply compared to the rest of the mourners, makes her way forward. She stops in front of Emory and takes both his hands in hers. I used to bring your mother meals, she says, back when she was sick, before you disappeared. I always wondered what happened to you. Emory's composure cracks for the first time, just slightly, at the corner of his eyes. She passed 2 years after I left, he says. I never got to tell her the money came from somewhere. The woman squeezes his hands. She would have been proud you survived it. Behind them, Dorian stands alone now, the crowd having quietly closed him out of its center, drifting instead toward Emory, like he's the gravity in the room. Odette watches her cousin standing at the edges of his own family's mourners. 9 a.m., she says again, mostly to herself this time. Everyone will be there. The board meeting room smells like fresh coffee and old money. 12 chairs surround a long glass table. 11 are filled. Emory sits in the 12th, still in the same coat, pin catching the overhead light. Dorian sits across from him, flanked by 2 attorneys in matching navy suits. Odette sits at the head of the table where her father used to sit. A woman in her 50s, the company's general counsel, breaks the seal on a second envelope, the one addressed to the board. The room goes quiet, except for the rustle of paper. This is dated the same week as the letter given to Mr. Kastel, she says. I'll read the relevant section. She clears her throat. To the board. By the time this is read, you will have already met the man I failed for 31 years. I am transferring my personal shares, 40% of Bramwell Industries, to Emory Kastel, effective immediately upon confirmation of my death. This transfer is not contestable. I have structured it through an irrevocable trust, established 2 years ago, verified by 3 independent attorneys and a forensic accountant. Dorian's attorney leans forward. Irrevocable trust. That closes the door on any contest based on diminished capacity. There's more, the counsel says, and continues reading. I am aware my nephew Dorian will resist this. I ask the board to consider one fact before ruling on any objection. Dorian has known about the Route 9 accident since he was 19 years old. He used that knowledge to ensure his own position at this company was never questioned, threatening to expose family matters if I ever tried to remove him from leadership. 3. The room turns toward Dorian in one collective motion. That's a lie, Dorian says, but his voice cracks in the middle of the word lie. Is it? Odette asks. Because I found something this morning, in Dad's home office safe. She places a small recorder on the glass table and presses play. Silas's voice fills the room, weaker than anyone remembers it, clearly recorded near the end. Dorian came to me last spring, told me if I ever changed the succession plan, he'd make sure the accident became public before I could control the story. He wanted the CEO title guaranteed. I gave in. I've been giving in for 6 years. The recording clicks off. Dorian's attorneys exchange a look. Neither of them tries to hide. That's inadmissible, Dorian says. You can't just... It's not going to court, Dorian, Odette says. It's going to the board, right now. One board member, a woman near the far end of the table, speaks for the first time. I move to formally recognize the trust transfer and to open a separate review of Mr. Ashgrove's conduct regarding the succession agreement. Hands rise around the table, one after another, until only Dorian's remains flat against the glass. Emory sits quietly through all of it, hands folded, the pin on his collar catching the light one more time. Dorian shoves his chair back so hard it cracks against the wall. You've all decided already, he says. A recording. A letter. A homeless man's word. That's what you're basing this on? We're basing it on your uncle's trust documents, the general counsel says. The recording only supports it. Dorian turns on Emory. You think this makes you somebody? 31 years in the gutter, and one letter puts a gold pin on your coat? I didn't ask for the pin, Emory says. You didn't refuse it either. Dorian slams both palms on the glass table. You could have handed it back, said no to a dead man's guilt money. But here you sit, wearing his chair's shadow like you earned it. I earned it the night I pulled him out of a truck before it turned into a fireball, Emory says. You hid behind a loading dock at 7, so nobody caught you skipping school. Don't tell me what I earned. Dorian pulls a folder from his bag and drops it in front of Odette. Photos spill across the table. Emory outside a shelter. Emory sorting through a dumpster. A date stamp from 3 years ago. I had a private investigator find him last year, Dorian says. I knew where he was the whole time. I could have brought him to your father whenever I wanted. I chose not to. Odette stares at the photos, then at Dorian. You knew where he was, and you let Dad die without ever seeing him. I let your father keep his guilt, Dorian says. Guilt kept him controllable. A reunited old friend doesn't. The room goes still. Even the attorneys stop writing. You manufactured his suffering, Odette says, voice flat with disbelief. I protected this company, Dorian snaps, something none of you understand how to do. He turns back to Emory. Take the shares. Take the seat. Enjoy running a company built on a cover-up I engineered better than your dead friend ever could. You built nothing, Emory says. You just made sure 2 men who loved each other stayed apart for 2 extra years. Dorian grabs his folder and photos off the table, jaw locked. He stops at the door. You'll regret trusting him, he says, pointing at Emory without turning around. Money doesn't erase 31 years of nothing. I'm not the one who erased anything, Emory says. I'm the one who waited while you buried it deeper. Dorian walks out. The door clicks shut. Nobody speaks until the general counsel sets down her pen. Mr. Kastel, the trust includes advisory status. Mr. Bramwell wanted you seated on this board, not just holding shares from a distance. Emory shakes his head. I don't want his title. Every head turns. I didn't come here for a seat, he says. I came to say goodbye to a friend who spent 31 years too afraid to face me, while his own nephew tracked me down and said nothing. Odette leans forward. Then what do you want? Emory pauses, choosing each word. A shelter sits 4 blocks from this building. I lived there 6 years. 30 people sleep there most nights. Half of them held jobs once. 1 bad month took everything from them. He looks around the table. Fund that shelter. Fully. Beds, meals, job placement, mental health support. No plaque, no donation photo op. Run it with people who've slept on a cot before they make decisions about who deserves help. Quet. The board member near the end nods. That's a modest use of 40% equity in a company this size. I don't need the rest, Emory says. Set aside enough to keep a roof over my head. The remainder stops people from ending up where I ended up, or where Dorian made sure I stayed. Odette studies him. My father would want his name on it. Then put it there, Emory says. Just keep the doors open. The council writes without hesitation now. I'll draft the amendment this afternoon. Odette rises, crosses the room, and pulls Emory up from his chair. She wraps her arms around a coat that survived 31 winters on the street. Thank you for pulling him out of that truck, she says, and for not hating us for what came after. I never hated your father, Emory says. He carried his guilt alone for 3 decades. Your cousin carried a folder that could have ended it 2 years sooner and chose silence instead. Around the table, board members shift in their seats. One wipes his eyes and doesn't hide it. Outside the tall windows, the rain finally breaks, sunlight cutting weakly across the skyline. 6 months later, a modest brick building stands 4 blocks from Bramwell Industries, a fresh sign mounted above the door. The Silas Bramwell Community House. Emory stands outside it most mornings, coffee in hand, greeting people by name as they come and go. He still wears the coat. He had the gold pin sewn permanently into the collar, right where Silas first pinned it on him 3 decades ago. Odette visits every Friday. She brings her children sometimes, lets them help stock the pantry shelves. She says it's the closest she's ever felt to understanding who her father really was before the company, before the name, before all of it. Dorian's name doesn't come up much anymore. The board's internal review ended quietly, his resignation filed before anyone had to force the matter further. Nobody at the community house mentions him. Nobody needs to. On the anniversary of the funeral, Emory walks to Ridgemont Cemetery alone. He kneels beside a gray headstone, rain starting to fall again, gentle this time. "You waited too long," he says, "but you got there." He sets a single object on top of the stone, a photograph, edges soft from handling, 2 young men grinning on a loading dock. Then he stands, buttons his coat against the rain, and walks back toward the shelter, where 30 people are waiting for a warm meal and a bed that will still be there tomorrow.